This is episode 312 of Jumblethink.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Jumblethink, where we interview dreamers, makers, innovators, and influencers all about their journey of turning their dreams and ideas into reality. Along the way, we're going to share some tips on how you can turn your own dreams and ideas into reality too. Our guest on today's show is Reed Goossens. More about Reed in a moment. Whether you're a new listener or a longtime fan, if you've never subscribed to Jumblethink, head on over to your favorite place to listen to podcasts, search for Jumblethink, and click that magical subscribe button. While you're there, leave us a rating and review so others know what you think of the show too. Now let's jump into today's conversation.
Hi, this is Christina Everett, executive producer of podcasts at iHeartRadio. You're about to listen to an episode recorded live at PodMax. Enjoy the show.
Hey there, welcome to Jumblethink. My name's Michael Woodward. I am your host, and we have a really great conversation lined up for you today. A moment ago, you heard from our friend Christina from iHeartRadio. Today's show was recorded at PodMax in Trenton, New Jersey. PodMax is this really cool event where they bring in some leading entrepreneurs to meet up with some leading podcasters. We get to interview them and hear their stories and share their stories with you. Today's conversation is with Reed Goossens. Now, you may be wondering, who is Reed Goossens? Well, he's a real estate investor, a best-selling author, an entrepreneur, a podcast host, and as he says, an all-around good bloke, meaning he's from Australia. Here's a little bit more about him. In 2012, Reed quit his job in Australia and moved halfway across the globe to the U.S. to change his life and to chase a dream. With limited funds, no investment experience, and no credit, Reed went from purchasing a small duplex to growing his own real estate investing firm, Wildhorn Capital. Reed now syndicates large multi-million-dollar deals across the U.S. He has also achieved financial freedom and has taken control of his life. He's a podcast host, and he hosts a very successful podcast about investing in the U.S. called Investing in the U.S., where he invites other distinguished real estate investors, entrepreneurs, and others to speak with him about their success and help guide other investors who want to successfully invest in the U.S. Now, I said he's a best-selling author. He has 2 books, Investing in the U.S. and 10,000 Miles to the American Dream. Now, let's go ahead and join the conversation with Reed Goossens, recorded live at PodMax. Reed, welcome to the show.
G'day, Michael. Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for joining us. You are obviously not native to this great...
Well, South Texas, right, mate?
Yeah, very south. Keep on going past Brazil and around the globe and take a left and a right. And where are you from?
I'm originally from Australia and now call LA home.
Okay.
And moved to the United States back in 2012. So I've been here for a little while now.
Why?
Why? The love of 2 things.
Okay.
One is my now wife, then girlfriend, Erica.
That's always a good motivator.
Always a good motivator, right? Coming and stealing the American women. And then the second one is New York City. Fell in love with New York City back in 2009 when I backpacked through there, and I thought I need to live here at some point in my future, and I'd made that happen. So yeah.
Yeah, but you're in LA.
Now in LA. Now I'm into surfing. My wife, she's from LA, and she's like, man, we're over unless you move to LA. So, we did a couple of years, 2012 to 14 in New York, and then have been in LA ever since.
So New York magically lost its appeal when...
I rocked up there yesterday because we are in Trenton, New Jersey, and it was blowing a gale. It was freaking cold. Like I'm coming. I was like, I love the warm.
Oh, that's so cool. Now you're a real estate investor. You're an author, 2 books, entrepreneur, podcast host. You're doing a lot. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there's a spark of creativity in here. Where did that all start?
Well, the whole journey started back in 2000 and end of 2009. So graduated from University of Queensland as a structural engineer in 2007. I moved to immediately, like all Australians, it's been part of our DNA. We need to move abroad, right? And when you move abroad, you do it in a big way. You go on for a couple of years, right? Because it takes a small fortune to leave the country.
Yeah.
So moved to New York. Moved to London. Worked on the 2012 Olympic Games in 2008. Then went to the south of France and was working on a super yacht. If you've ever seen Below Deck, it's the exact same thing.
Wow.
And at that time, that's where I met my then girlfriend, now wife, Erica. And we met on the beach to Spain, moved back to Australia. That's when my whole life was like, oh gosh, I'm now back to reality. Sitting in a cubicle in my structural engineering job going, I have more to give.
Yeah.
I have more to give. I don't know what that give is. And that's when I stumbled across the book, like everyone has been inspired by, Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Okay.
Back in 2009, 2010. And that really was a spark that got me going down this path of becoming an entrepreneur. And at the time, I didn't even know what an entrepreneur was. So yeah.
A lot to unpack there. I mean, I can see why working with the 2012 Olympics, then working on a mega yacht, and then going back to a cubicle would not be so appealing.
So cyclical, right?
So there was still, you studied obviously to be a structural engineer.
Yep.
You don't just go, hey,
No.
one day I'm going to go.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So you have a lot invested in there, and there's a lot to risk to say, you know what, maybe this isn't what I want to do. How did you process that and go from what I always thought or what I trained for isn't measuring out to be what I expected?
That's such an interesting question. Actually, the first time I've ever been asked on a podcast like that. But I had that similar poor dad mentality. I don't want to use Robert's stuff, but just that mindset of like, oh, I went to school, I must do this. You know what I mean? And structural engineering, civil engineering is very unique. It's very defined. It's not like business. Wide open. It could be anything, right?
Yeah.
So it's actually my wife helped me sort of change my mindset. I don't necessarily need to be an engineer.
Wow.
But what it did do for me was I love studying engineering. It was a really awesome problem solving. I'm a math geek. I'm probably the most articulate structural engineer there could be, but it's been developed over time. It wasn't always like that. My brain is very much black and white, and I had to develop that grey. But yeah, it was over time. It was like, yeah, I can do more. I can be more. So it was about going and scratching that itch. So yeah.
So first thing out of the gate, what was the kind of experiment for you to say, I'm making this pivot?
Yep.
This is my first step.
The first thing out of the gate was to move to America, right?
Okay.
It was ended. Erica came out in 2011 to study for a year, do a master's. At the end, when she finished, it was like, okay, there's an awesome visa for Australians if you have a white collar job. You got a job offer. So we quit my job in Australia and I moved to New York City, and I had 3 months to find a job.
Okay.
And so I literally put all the engineering joints on an A4 piece of paper and literally walked into them and door knocked. And I would only look for people, for engineering companies with less than 50 people because they wouldn't have a HR. And not having HR meant that, because I would see a resume and be like, Australian University? Nah, next. Like it was just no way. And so I needed to be different, right? And my whole thing is being different is better than being better, right? And so that was I got the job, and then within like 2 weeks of being fresh off the boat, I was at a New York REIR event, and I was just blown away. And I thought Australia had some pretty awesome networking events for real estate. This was on steroids. This is New York City, fire hose, trying to drink a teacup of water out of this fire hose, and just realizing the opportunities that were here in the United States. And that's really where it started.
It's really interesting to hear your perspective, because so many people I talk to have a very singular perspective, worldview, because they haven't been so much, or if they've traveled, it's been 2 weeks at a time. You can't get a worldview based on a 2-week vacation. And you come here and you see land of opportunity that was on steroids. You talk about this networking event, and so did that like kind of an awaken like anything's possible kind of thing?
Well, yeah, part of who I am as a person is I like uncertainty, right?
Okay.
And part of what I know that I'm fearful of is regret. So I don't want to ever wake up when I'm 70 years of age and go, geez, I wish I'd moved to New York back in 2012.
Yeah,
right?
I still wish I would have moved to New York. I haven't done it yet. It's on my list.
But it's the muscle within inside you to back yourself, right?
Yeah.
To say, I'm going to bet on myself. And the worst case scenario is that I move back to Australia and I get another engineering job, right? So I'd rather do that, give it a go and fail, than not have given it a go at all.
You say back yourself. What does that mean?
Bet on yourself.
Okay.
Learn to bet on yourself. You've got this. You've got the mental. You might not have all the answers, but you've got the stamina within you. You've got the stamina within inside of you to go off and give it a go. Give it a crack, as I like to say. Because giving something a go, even if you fail, you've given it a go and you're giving your best effort.
So
right?
why are more people not betting on themselves? Because I think there are a lot of people that are discontent. I mean, depression's high. Depression comes out of a place of dissatisfaction of some sort.
Right.
I mean, there's some chemical things and that kind of thing, but most people who are depressed have a situation that they don't want to be in.
Yep.
So
Comes from a point of pain, right?
yeah, how do people settle for that when they could bet on themselves? Why aren't more people betting on themselves?
Society, mindset, what your parents taught you. There's a myriad of things that people get stuck in their own, between the ears, right? It's all mental, right? It's only 20% actual doing. The rest is all mental.
Yeah.
And knowing that you can go off and do this and give it a crack is so important. And I think one of the biggest things that people need to work at, and again, it's a skill that doesn't just happen overnight. You have to be wanting to get comfortable being uncomfortable, I think is the best way to put it, because it's so important to push the boundaries. If you just sit in your little box and not do anything, well, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But for me as a person, I know that I need to go challenge myself.
Yeah.
And being challenged is what makes me happy and thus not depressed.
So some people would say, I'm afraid to fail. I'm afraid of the unknown. Do you think that's a wiring thing, or is it
100%.
Okay,
It's
so
a wiring
you
thing.
are predisposed to be more at risk adverse and willing to step in that where some people might want to play it safe. Is that
yes, but I also you can flex that muscle, like going to the gym and working on your physique. You can also learn how to bet on yourself, right? And the way you do that in this world of betting on yourself is through education, right?
Yeah.
If you know something, if a doctor, brain surgeon knows how to be a brain surgeon because he studied at it, right? Now, if you said to me, Reed, go be a brain surgeon, I was like, oh gosh, I've got no idea what to do. But if I went and studied at it for 8 or 9 or 10 years, you'd be more confident in that, right?
Yeah.
So it's about getting over your ignorance of, well, I don't know how to do it, so I'm just not going to do it. That's not the answer, right? Ignorance is not an excuse in 2020.
Yeah.
You can find the answer to anything you want to achieve. It's just about the willingness to go out and do it, right? And take that action.
And I think the problem is that so many people, you talked about that predisposition of we talked about worldview. And I think that so many people are conditioned to say, oh, if I don't do this style of learning, or if I don't follow this specific model, then it doesn't work. You seem like a person who likes to learn.
Yes.
A curious person.
Right. Yeah. Being curious is the key to all success, I think.
And so in that, I think you are willing to bend the rules of what people say should be. What would you tell someone listening right now if they're wrestling with this going, I've always wanted to I want to start my own business. I want to start writing a book. You've done all of those things.
Get over your own, I'll use PG, crap, right? It's all in your mind. You can the mind is so powerful.
Yeah.
You can put your mind to it. And the whole reason, my whole shtick of being here is that if I can move to the United States and achieve financial freedom through real estate, through a vehicle like real estate, I can do all these things, podcasts, books, blah, 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 blah. The reason the only thing that makes me different is that I learned to back myself. And so many people are afraid of that. And they're afraid of failure. They're afraid of the uncertainty. Yeah. But if you know what the failure is going to look like, you know that your worst case scenario is someone's everyday life, then what's the harm, right?
Yeah.
What's the harm in giving it a go?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. I want to get back to your story a little bit. So you make the jump to the U.S., you end up in New York, you go knocking on doors, you look at a specific... And I love that. I think so often people... Like for me, if I were to try to use a resume as a vehicle to get a job right now, I would probably fail because I've owned my own business for the last 13 years.
You couldn't be employed, right?
And I never finished my college degree because I had an offer in the field I wanted to go. And I worked at a church as one of the executive pastors for 7 years. And so I haven't really worked for anyone since like 2001.
That's awesome.
And so for me, I look at that and I go, that's overwhelming. Because if I had to go do that, how would I navigate that?
Right.
How would I? And yet you found a solution for you. You were able to see a clear path. How are you able to see those alternative options?
Part of what going to university, which historically the norm of education, university, college, what that also does, it not only helps you to get a degree, but it also, you're at that stage in your life when you're 17, 18, 19, you're learning about yourself, right?
Yeah.
And learning to make mistakes and chase girls or chase boys, whatever it might be. But you're getting a little bit more of the worldly values at that point.
Yeah.
And so looking at things differently is maybe a skill that I've learned by going to university, like looking at someone, looking at yourself and saying, okay, I can kind of see, I can connect the dots about what he's doing. Maybe I should just connect the dots in my life about what he's doing. Mm-hmm. So I think part of my, wasn't a special sauce, but part of what I like to do is observe someone quietly and say, okay, well, think about just a little bit differently. And so what is the difference there? So the difference in that, the example was, well, I know my resume is going to sit on Indeed.com and do absolutely nothing.
Right.
I know that the gatekeepers are HR, who have no freaking idea what I've just worked in London. I've traveled across the Atlantic Ocean. To your story, had this incredible story, but on a piece of paper it looks rubbish, right?
Yeah.
So how do I get to the people who make the decisions quicker?
Yeah.
Rock up, and there's going to be a lot of no's, right? There's going to be no. But as Tony Robbins says, you take one yes to change your life, and that's what it does.
And so you get that career in New York doing work in the same industry you were in before.
Structural engineering.
Yes.
That's correct.
So what was the pivot out of that?
The pivot out of that was, so obviously the book Rich Dad Poor Dad back in 2009, prior to moving to the United States, was the pivot of the aha moment, right?
Kind of the moment of mindset shift.
Correct. The moment of mindset shift that my time is valuable and I don't want to be exchanging it for other people's, to essentially chase other people's dreams for them, right? That's what we do with a W-2 job. And so, but I knew that I had to keep a roof over my head, right?
Yeah. Always a benefit.
Yeah, always a benefit. Always, and this is the thing. This is where the hustle starts. Like, this is where I talk about spinning plates. Like, okay, well, I know I want to achieve this, but I've got to spin one plate to keep the bills paid and keep the missus happy, And then I go, okay, well, maybe I need to start dabbling and learning a little bit more about real estate investing and also understanding that I'm surrounded as a structural engineer by other real estate investors.
Yeah,
so because developers and infrastructure. So that book also took the blinkers off when I was just doing this. And for people who aren't watching, there's no watching, but for people who can't see me, I'm literally putting blinkers over my eyes, and it takes the blinkers off, right? And you start seeing a world in the world in a different lens.
Yeah.
So came to the United States when I pivoted to LA. I said to myself, okay, I know I started to do. I got a mentor. I started to do some deals as a co-GP on the larger stuff. But what I realized was like, okay, if I'm going to have to be in a day job, because also I must add, guys, I had visa issues, right? I had to be in this country. I had to have a job until I got married to my wife to get a green card.
Yeah.
So I said to myself, well, I already got a skill set. I'm a project manager at a structural engineering firm. I think I could be valuable to a developer, a real estate developer. If I'm going to be in this business, if I'm going to have a job for the next 3 or 4 years, I might as well be surrounded 24/7 by real estate. And so I made a pivot out of engineering into the owner rep world, and I went and worked for a big developer in Los Angeles, building high-end luxury multifamily developments.
Get your hands in the dirt without a lot of the risk.
Right. Right. See it from the ownership perspective. And that was really key to my again, mind shift changed about like, well, if I'm going to have to keep doing this and keep hustling and keep, a nice paying income to keep everyone happy at the table, I need to, but let's go and just be enthralled in it 24/7.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We're going to pivot here towards the end of this first segment. The first question we always like to ask is, how do you find purpose in what you do?
It's a very good question. How do I find purpose in what I do? Originally, when and this has been and I'm going to say more from a struggle point of view, like the North Star when you're in a job, and I'm talking to the people who are in a job right now with the plates. They've got 6 plates spinning. Got kids. They've got the dog. They've got everything.
Yeah.
Your purpose at that point is to become financially free, right? To provide for your family, and that was my purpose, right? Good and bad. I don't have kids yet. I will have kids soon. But my purpose for the last 7-10 years has been to become financially free.
Yeah.
Now the purpose has shifted to I'm now creating something, right? I've created this freedom. What do I do with the time? Now, I don't just sit around twiddling my thumbs. I literally run a multifamily investment firm, which is a full-time job, right?
Yeah.
But it's also about what's now the new North Star, right, for the next 10, 12 years. And the way I would now look at it, and the purpose is that I would not be sitting... 10 years ago when I moved to the United States, I would not be sitting here thinking that I would be talking to you about a multifamily investment company And as Tony Robbins talks about, like, you underestimate what you can achieve in a year, but you can overestimate what you can achieve in a decade.
Yeah.
So the new North Star is probably some along the lines of providing the best investment opportunities for my investors, being the best husband, brother, son I can be. But also in saying that relieving your pressures of societal pressures of like, in 10 years, I need to be here, right? I had no idea I'd be sitting here talking to you 10 years after picking up the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. So live in the moment, work hard, see what doors open, and be flexible enough to walk through those doors and see what the opportunities come up to you. Because I know that the last 10 years have been freaking awesome. I know the next 10 years are going to be even better, right? That doesn't necessarily answer your question, but it's also a different mindset of living in the moment and being present with your pursuit of whatever that might be.
What is one big challenge you're currently working to overcome?
One big challenge, I think, and it sounds a little cheesy, but leveling up. I've been cruising at this altitude for a little while now, and I work with my business coach. She's actually more of a life coach, to take it up a notch. I've got more to give. I've been, back when I was in my W-2 job, I was probably going 80, 90 miles an hour in second gear. Yeah. I'm now in fourth gear, going 80, 90 miles an hour. I've probably got 2 gears left to give. How do I take it from being Reed Goossens and Andrew Campbell running a Wildhorn Capital to creating more of infrastructure around employees and around, giving me freeing up more of my time to be in that 5th and 6th gear, to give more, to do more. And that's all ever evolving. So,
and finally, what is your next big dream, idea, goal that you have?
The next the big one from a business point of view is and I'll give you a couple here. Business point of view is to double the portfolio in the next 2 to 3 years.
What does that translate to?
That would be nearly 4,000 units.
Okay.
So we're currently 1,800, 2,000 right now. To double that, I want to have investments back in Australia because I'm from Australia. But also from a personal point of view, I do want to be the best husband, the best. My view of success is not just, I look at it like a table. It's not just the one pillar of business, right? I need to be successful in my health, my well-being, and my family and my love. Because if those things fall away and you don't have that, and you've just got your business and that falls away, well, you only got one place you're going is down, right? And there's so many business owners out there that their kids hate them. They're in their 3rd or 4th marriage and they've got a crappy health. I want to make sure I'm successful across all facets of life while still hustling at the same time.
Well, we're going to take a break right here. When we come back, we're going to dive more into Reed's story, get some time to talk about his books, and a lot more. We'll be right back. Hey there, it's Mike, and every day across social media channels everywhere, I see the same questions being asked. Who should design my next website? Where should I get a new logo design? Hey, I need a video editor. Who should I use? And these questions are hard to answer because every project is unique. But there's a company out there that is there to help. Their name is Floxy. Floxy offers unlimited projects by a vetted creative team for a flat monthly rate. Video editing, graphic design, copywriting, web design, and more. They can help you. And they are constantly adding new categories where they can help you in the future, too. Their project managers are US-based, giving you same-day responses and 24-hour turnaround on most requests. All that with a simple, fixed monthly price. But you don't have to take my word for it. One of their clients, Florian, says this: Floxy is that missing component for my business that I wish I had always had. Dealing with freelancers on sites like Fiverr and Upwork is time-consuming and a very hit or miss. With Floxy, I get one point of contact for all my work, and they are quick to respond. Their work is high quality and on point. Overall, it is much cheaper and much better to use Floxy than anything else I've ever tried so far. So if you're ready to get the design you want, if you're ready to have the next website built that you need, or maybe that video edited, Floxy is there to help. And as a listener of JumbleThink, they're going to give you 10% off your first month. All you have to do is head on over to Floxy, FLOCKSY.com/JumbleThink. That's Floxy.com/JumbleThink to get 10% off your first month. And by the way, that comes with a 14-day money-back guaranteed. It's time to stop waiting for perfect design and to get your projects done. So head on over to Floxy.com/JumbleThink and start getting your projects completed. Now let's return to our conversation with today's guest, Reed Goossens. We are back with Reed Goossens. Before we dive into the conversation, people listening are probably thinking, how can I connect with Reed? How can they do that?
Easy is to go to reedgoossens.com. It's reedgoossens.com. You can check out my podcast there. You can check out my 2 books. You can check out all my blogs. There's a link to contact me and get on a quick phone call. But for those listeners out there who ever come through LA and they want to say g'day and go for a beer or coffee, just hit me up at info@reedgoossens.com and just put in the subject line PodMax, and we can go for a coffee.
Super cool. All of that will be in the episode notes, so you don't have to work for it. Just go look at it, click a button, click a link, and it will take you there. So much we've talked about so far. I want to talk a little bit about your 2 books. You have Invest in the U.S., and then you have 10,000 Miles to American Dream. Super cool books. Tell us a little bit about them.
So 2 books. The first book, Investing in the U.S., is literally all the best episodes from my podcast, also called Investing in the U.S., in book form.
So how many episodes are you? And
I have been going for 4.5 years.
Okay.
I do one a week, so we're over 200 episodes.
Okay.
And the reason the podcast started back in the day was to talk about the benefits of investing here in the United States to the international folk, right?
Oh, so that's the audience.
Well, that was the audience, and then we pivoted, right?
Okay.
And so, like anything, you niche till it hurts.
Yeah.
You open my mouth, I've got this bloody accent. When I moved to this country, I didn't even know what an EIN number was or a credit score. So teaching him all about that, and now it's pivoted. And after 200 episodes, as I'm sure you're aware of, you can only talk so much about real estate, right?
Yeah.
And you get more into the journey. You get more into building something from nothing. So now I talk a lot more to business owners, CEOs, how to build culture, how to build the North Star, and talk about where you're going to and be more those facets of life we talk about. So a lot about that. But the book itself is just all the best episodes jam-packed into a book form, and it literally goes through everything from investing lingo to getting started to finding the right market to building your A team. Someone who's just getting started, this is a great little book for them to get started on.
So you mentioned it started out as being for the international community, but in some ways I think that's actually helpful for someone here because there's probably a lot of misinformation, a lot of assumptions that people have. And so getting back to the basics and building a clean, correct foundation would really be helpful.
I think part of my superpower is the being international perspective. Coming from a country where we have historically low cap rates, right? Yeah. And coming to a country where you've just got so much plentifulness of opportunities, and from a debt to real estate vehicles to all these different things, that sometimes people don't realize what they're sitting on or what's in their backyard. And it takes someone from international, we talked about the international perspective before, to come in and say, hey guys, freaking hell, like pay attention here, you know what I mean? Like it's you can do it. You are in the land of opportunity, and it's part of my special sauce and superpower is telling people a little bit about that and where I come from.
Yeah, super cool books. We'll put those in the episode notes also, so check that out. You, throughout the first segment, and then even here when we were talking about this, you use the term North Star. And Simon Sinek starts with why, and all of those different interpretations of direction. Talk to us a little bit about why setting a clear North Star is a healthy way and a good way for building success.
I think it's healthy in the terms of, and a lot of people struggle with developing what that North Star is, right? And it's not, it doesn't just happen, and people put all this pressure on. I need to have a North Star. I'm here sitting today telling you that will change over time as you grow as an entrepreneur, as you grow in the world of success. It will change, right? And your North Star from business to personal life will change over time as well.
And once you reach certain goals, you don't strive to stay at the same goal.
Correct.
You constantly are evolving.
Correct.
There are a lot of people I know who I sit down and talk to, whether they're clients for our web agency, whether they're friends, whether they're people in our church, wherever they are. I sit down with so many people and they just go, I just don't know what I'm here to do. They feel like there's something calling them to deeper, something more that they have to offer. And I think that's part of your story with you had success in structural engineering and you felt like there was more opportunity.
Yep.
What would you tell them if they're struggling to figure out what that North Star is?
I think when you're struggling to feel what the North Star is, you need to sit down and take some quiet time with yourself and your own thoughts.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are afraid of doing that, right?
Yeah.
But listing out what your pros and cons are, like what what do you like in life? Let's start there. What do you like? What do you do for fun? It might be fishing. It might be hanging out with the kids. It might be going for a hike. It might be going to church. Whatever it might be, write it down. Right. And from that, we can get granular. Also write the things that you don't like, what you want down. What's important to you? Do you have hang-ups over finances? A lot of people do. A lot of marriages break up over finances. Well, let's dive deeper into that. Why do you have hang-ups over finances? Well, maybe because of your upbringing. Okay, well, what was your upbringing? So we're getting really deep right now. In psychology, but doing that helps you keep the 6 whys. Right? They talk about 6 whys. Keep asking yourself why. Okay, why do you have financial problems? Why do you have financial hang-ups? Okay, was it because your dad didn't? You get really deep and you ask yourself 6 times, you'll get to the true root cause. Yeah. Right. And what it typically boils down to, and what I've seen when I've interviewed all these people, is lack of self-worth, lack of the fact that I'm not worthy of being something better. Yeah. I've been put in this box, and that's where I got to stay. Yeah. Right. The box is freaking small. Get out of it. Jump out of it. You're big enough and ugly enough to get out of it and see what else is around the world. And having the ability to give yourself permission to go and do that and go and achieve more is one of the biggest hang-ups most people, I'm sure you've experienced as well, being a pastor, that is they can't get beyond that. Yeah. Like they can't give themselves permission to say, you can be more. Yeah. What it is right now, and it's nothing. It's okay to not know what that being more is. Yeah. It's a pursuit of being more that is important. Yeah. Right? So going and taking that first step, like, I know I can be more. Well, what does that look like now? Yeah. Well, let's start with just what you're good at, what you're bad at. Dive deep into that, ask yourself the 6 whys, and you'll start to unearth stuff that has really been in the subconscious that has held you back in life to give you that feeling of, I can be more.
Well, and we were talking a moment ago about how the North Star changes and evolves, and as you reach goals or as situation of life evolves and changes, your North Star looks different when you're married than it does when you're single. It looks different when you have kids than when you're just married. I think often we get locked into the regiment, the routine of life, and we forget to be purposeful. Mm-hmm. How do you really stay purposeful and focused to make sure that North Star, one, know what it is, 2, you're evaluating if it's still the right thing and you're evolving it and you're keeping on task? How do you stay purposeful in the decisions you're making when it's so easy, especially here in America, to get locked into routine and forget about really being intentional for the future?
Self-awareness.
Okay.
100% of self-awareness. It's and that's something that is a learned skill. That is something that is, to be self-aware means you have to put the phone down. You have to take some quiet time. And if you're not practicing, whether it be meditation or deep breathing or just going for a walk, and not having these external factors nag at you, emails, social media, sometimes it can be family, you know what I mean? And whether that be both immediate or extended, hang-ups about the way your parents raised you or whatever. Having that, being self-aware and understanding. I keep going back to the journey and it's okay. And with the permission, that's being self-aware helps you be more grounded, helps you be more appreciative of what you have, helps you be in the moment rather than trying to be somewhere in the future that may not necessarily be realistic or even fathomable. It might even not even come true. Like, so many people are scared of their own shadow, right? Like, you walk around and doomsday's around the corner, right? If you keep living in a fearful mindset, you're gonna not ever be able to flap your wings, right? Yeah. And take those risks and understand that calculated risks are okay.
When you say calculated risks, how do you measure that?
Goes back to education, right? A great quote my dad always said was, "A fool and their money are easily parted." And we're talking obviously about money here, but being educated, and when I say educated, it's a plethora of stuff, you never stop learning. You stop learning, you stop growing, right? Just because you went to university or high school or whatever and you think you've done it all, well, that's where people make the most mistake, right? Yeah. They think, I know it all. Yeah. And that's immediate when you stop growing, right? Yeah. And that's where you start getting into these troubles because you think you know it all, right? Yeah. Sitting here today talking to you, I don't know half the things I want to know. I want to learn a second language, right? Yeah. I want to go experience cultures. And that's why where travel for me is where I get my juices from. I love going to other countries and experiencing cultures. Yeah. And that's what I really get a kick out of life on. So,
and I think that's so interesting because we often condition ourselves to arrive to a destination and then stay at the destination. when I arrive, then the journey's over. And that's a really weird mindset, but I think it's really prevalent.
Yep.
I love that you are approaching this and being purposeful in the choices that you're making, that you are saying, these are the things I value. These are the things that I want to invest in. And I applaud you for that. In that, how are you overcoming the fears that you're facing? Because I know that there are things that probably keep you up sometimes when you really get into them. So let's talk a little bit about, I think when they see or hear stories like yours, they hear the journey, they go, oh, he's just fearless. Oh, he has it all figured out. Oh, he's figured out the magic sauce and I can never do that. So how do you address those fears? How do you address those places that scare you?
The biggest the biggest fear was leaving Australia back in 2012 and coming abroad and giving it a go. There's been some dark times. Don't get me wrong. There's been some challenging times in my relationship. Moving halfway across the world with a girl that you just fell in love with. That's tough, right? It can. It's not easy.
Yeah.
But what you are doing in that point of going back to backing yourself is you're pushing that boundary out a little bit, right? You've just put the new flag in the ground, like this is the standard now.
Yeah.
You need to start operating at this standard, and you took a big leap, right? So when you've done that big leap, other leaps seem a lot smaller, right? How do I deal? Yes, there's stress in life. Yes, you talk about purpose and not being just in the dailiness of the grind or whatever it is. It is, again, back to that mindfulness, right?
Yeah.
Making sure that you are appreciative and grateful for the things that I do have, right?
Yeah.
And the values that were instilled in me and the things that I get juices from. Like, I love talking about one podcast. I love going traveling. I love surfing. I love my family. Like, those things make me happy.
Yeah.
Do more of those things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And through that, you will find more purpose.
Yeah.
And it's okay that you might not necessarily have the purpose figured out today. And it goes back to the evolution of purpose in North Star. It will evolve over time, and be okay with that, right?
Yeah.
Because in 2020, we're on the wave, right? The wave is consistently changing, and if you're not open enough and willing enough to take the blinkers off and keep learning, go back to the education part, you will be sucked at the back of the wave and you'll be dumped.
Education keeps coming up in this conversation. I love education. I want to at some point go back and get a degree just so I have that accomplishment. I'm constantly learning. That's part of what I have to do in the world of web when I'm doing coding. Or how do you stay up to speed and learn? Because you're obviously not going back for another degree every time you have to learn something. So what are some of the resources and tools you use to constantly be a curious learner? Yeah, well, and this, again, you talk about a degree, right? And I think from the point of view, it sounds like you want to go back and tick the box because you didn't finish it, right? Right.
And so getting an education doesn't necessarily mean going to college, right? It can just be picking up a book, right, for $20, and that's all it can take. And that's it. That plants that seed, like the Rich Dad Poor Dad. It planted the seed to then grow into an oak tree, right? So it's through podcasts. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I also have learned to turn out the news. Like, news is so negative. Anything that's negative in my life, I turn it off now. And it's just, it's like it'll filter down to me if something bad's going to happen. You know what I mean?
Like, you probably heard that there are fires in Australia, but
no, really? Koalas are dying. Of course, but that is a way of like tuning out the negative stuff, right? And that starts from negative people in your life, and so. And investing in more of your self-time and education, reading books and listening to podcasts, all that sort of stuff. Yeah. Again, you do it consistently, you start operating at a higher level. Yeah. Right? And you're surrounding yourself with other people that you aspire to be is really, really important.
Super, super cool. I want to pivot here and kind of wrap up this segment by asking, you are looking to the future. You've written books, you've done the podcast, you're doing the investment, you're growing the amount of units that you have, you're growing outside of the U.S. That's the goal. What is something that most scares you right now in this journey that you go, this is the one thing I want to accomplish, but it scares me?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a really good question. The one thing, what scares me today actually is having kids.
Okay.
Yeah. Like having that responsibility of having kids, right?
That's not what you have to worry about. I have 2 kids. It's not the responsibility. It's not the kids. It's the lack of sleep you have to be afraid of.
Okay, that's what I'm afraid of, lack of sleep. But I also see the incredible that joy that kids bring, right?
Yeah.
And we're getting closer to that, but I guess it's not being the thing that scares me is being complacent and just being okay with patting yourself on the back. Like, yes, I'm here to tell the story about it, and I'll get to a point where I can stop telling the story and just try to inspire more people through actions.
Yeah.
Right. Again, that being more complacency is probably the biggest thing that I fear, because I know that I have more to give. Does that answer the question?
I think it does.
Yeah.
I think it does. Remind people how they can find and connect with you.
ReedGoossens.com.
We'll have all those links in the episode notes. We're going to take a break right here, and when we come back, it is the dreaded rapid fire questions. They're not too dreaded. They're a lot of fun.
We'll be right back. Chasing big ideas and dreams is hard to do. It's even harder when you try to chase those big ideas and dreams alone. So why not join a community of dreamers and idea makers just like you? Well, here at JumbleThink, we're here to help. How are we going to help? We are launching our free JumbleThink Facebook group to connect you with other dreamers and idea makers just like you, to share our struggles and our victories together, to give each other support and answers to our questions. And I'm going to give you some challenges along the way to keep you on track to turning those dreams and ideas into reality. In the episode notes today, you'll find a link to the brand new JumbleThink Facebook group. So click on that link, head on over to Facebook, join the group, and let's really start making those dreams and ideas a reality together. Now let's jump into rapid fire questions with today's guest, Reed Goossens.
Levez seulement le bras pour mettre l'aiguille sur le disque. Mettez le contact.
We are back with Reed Goossens. All right, are you ready for rapid fire questions?
Let's do it. Let's jump into it.
Okay, first question. As a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
A veterinarian.
That's pretty awesome. So you still like animals?
I used to ride horses back in the day, just nags off the track, and I used to always want to be a vet.
Nice.
And it needed too high of what's called an OP score in Australia. It needed like the number, like you needed to be the top 2%. And I was like, I'll just be an engineer.
Because that's settled. What is one tip you'd give someone with a big idea or dream and they don't know where to start?
So it's a little bit cliche. It depends. Okay, I'm going to give it for two different types of. If you're young, go freaking backpacking around the world. Like, get out of America and go and get lost for a little bit of time. If you're like, I'm talking like you're in your early 20s, relax.
Yeah.
You've got the rest of your freaking life to do. Like, go get lost for a little bit, figure out the world, find out new cultures, and then come back and get started. For those older people, do the same thing. But you might also want to have a little bit more, start surrounding yourself with the 5 people you aspire to be. I think getting out of that headspace of you're in that same circle, it's breaking out of that.
Yeah. What is one change you'd like to see in the world?
Oh, one change I'd like to see in the world. I think the biggest change is everyone's got to get over their own ego. So much ego is the core, the source of all conflict. Just, they call it like swinging your genitals, I think everyone knows which one I'm talking about on which side of the spectrum. I think it's just that, I think deep down humans are good.
Yeah.
I just think ego gets in the way.
What do you want your legacy to be?
I want my legacy to be that people look back and think of me as a person who is down to earth, who's approachable, who's a good guy, and ultimately provided an inspiration for them to go make change in their world, in their life.
Where do you find inspiration?
I find it through talking to other people on my podcast. I find it through talking on new people, like meeting new people. I think understanding the stories of where other people have come from is so important to help me keep inspired to continue to be on my journey.
What is one book you think every dreamer should read?
Every dreamer should read. I think obviously we talk a lot about Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's a very inspirational book and something that you can read at any stage in your life. But you got to be ready. You got to be ready for it. I think that book is really, really important. I've got another book out there for people who are more developed. It's called Key Person of Influence. Talks about by Dan Priestley. Talks about how to become a key person of influence in your sphere, in your business, and you don't have to be the next Tony Robbins, but you can just change that mindset around being that. And that was really, really quite inspirational.
For you, how do you define success?
back to what I was saying before, success for me is being successful across all the pillars in life, not just the business. Again, I want to be healthy. I want to have a great relationship with my wife. I want to have a great relationship with my dad and my sister. I want to go out and climb Kilimanjaro. You know what I mean? Like I want to go out and scale the earth and do more traveling and surf in Indonesia and all those sort of things. I think being successful across all facets are really important because success is not just defined by one of them.
What is one trend you're currently excited about?
Trend. I think Bitcoin is going to have a huge impact on the way we do trade, particularly around currency. I'm also interested to see what happens with the US dollar and the World Bank in the future.
Okay.
That's going to be quite an interesting one to see. And I don't know if that's, I don't have a crystal ball, but just the murmurs of like, will it always be there in 20 years' time combined with Bitcoin? I think that is really not inspiring, but disruptive.
Yeah.
I think being disruptive is cool. Even, some people might agree or disagree with me, but it's also just like, it's changing the way we're shaking it up a little bit. So yeah.
What is one habit you find helpful in your life?
New habit is meditation, deep breathing of the morning.
Mm-hmm. What is one thing you wish you would have known when you first started out?
Relax. You've got this.
If you weren't doing what you're doing today, what do you think you'd be doing?
Pursuing something else in another business. I think it's always in and around the time freedom stuff. So towards financial freedom, I happen to use the vehicle of real estate to do that. But it would be somewhere and being an entrepreneur.
And our final rapid fire question: what is one dream you are still wanting to fulfill in your own life?
One dream to still want to fulfill in my own life is to climb Kilimanjaro. I think that is the dream to climb Kilimanjaro at some point in the future.
As we wrap up, we always like to have our guests leave a final thought for all of us listening. What is your final thought for us?
My final thought, it's a little bit of a slogan that I've created, and it's saying that in life you have to be bold and be brave in order to go give life a crack. We are put on this earth for a short period of time. Don't take it for granted.
Reed, thanks so much for joining me here at PodMax in beautiful Trenton, New Jersey. It's so great to chat with you today.
Thank you, mate.
Once again, we want to thank Reed Goossens for being on the show today. You can check out his links in the episode notes. We want to thank our friends over at PodMax for hosting today's conversation. If you're an entrepreneur and you want to connect up with top podcasters to tell them your stories and get it out to their audiences, check out podmax.com. And we want to thank our friends over at Floxy. If you have graphic design needs, web development needs, or even video editing, they can help you with your project. As a listener of Jumblethink, they're going to give you 10% off your first month. All you have to do is head on over to Floxy, FLOCKSY.com/Jumblethink. And finally, I want to thank you for tuning in to today's show. It means the world to me that you would listen, and I hope today's conversation has encouraged you on the journey of chasing your big ideas and dreams. We believe you were created for something awesome, that your dreams and ideas matter. So get out there, dream big, and change the world around you.
En arrière, sur les côtés. Vous êtes une autre personne. Les mères de famille, les enfants, peuvent également prendre un moment revitalisant. Dans quelques mois, lorsque vous aurez bien saisi la technique et que vous serez maître de votre corps, vous pourrez vous décontracter même en travaillant.